Hello everybody, welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Memorial Initial Research Show. Congratulations to Emiliano Grillo and to anyone out there who had an outright wager on him. I had him a little bit in DFS, but not nearly enough to make up for what is another losing week. I did feel a lot better, even though it is a losing week. I did feel a lot better in the sense that I gave you all quite a few strong recommended plays to avoid. So even though it is a losing week in the end, I was on the right track. I also had a lineup or two that was in contention to begin the day, but when the best score in those lineups are +3, you're not going to end up doing very well, which is what happened with me. But I hope you had success this week at the Charles Schwab Challenge. So as always, if you did, please jump into chat or let me know on social media. Would love to be able to shout out members of the community who have success. But we turn our attention to the Memorial, so let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Go check them out. It is simply well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media, Twitter and Instagram, where I post research on Monday afternoons regarding the course or previous winners, a betting nugget for you all. So if you would like to see the summary of the research that I find, give me a follow over at Twitter and Instagram. Again, that will be out tomorrow afternoon. Twitter is also where I put my daily 3 up, 3 down for baseball, although there was none today, and probably not going to be moving forward on Sundays. It's just way too difficult and too much of a time crunch for church on Sunday morning, and then trying to get out the 3 up, 3 down info. But Monday through Saturday, if you would like to see daily baseball content, quick hitting daily baseball content, 3 players that I believe that will accrue their value and 3 players that I don't, give me a follow over at Twitter. And Twitter is also where I post my betting cards every week on the PGA Tour. So if you would like to see my weekly betting cards, give me a follow over at Twitter. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. Again, if you had success at the Charles Schwab Challenge, let me know. Would love to be able to shout you all out. What are you looking forward to for the Memorial? What kind of players do you think are going to be the favorites? Who do you think is going to be the betting favorite? All of that. We're here for all of your initial questions for the Memorial. So let's do our initial research for the 2023 Memorial. And we're going to start, as we normally do on a Sunday evening, over at the GCSAA Tournament Fact Sheet. And before I get any further, just because I just saw it before going live, there has been one field change already. Maverick McNeely is not playing this week. Maverick McNeely has withdrawn. Mark Hubbard has replaced him in the field. So make sure you make a note of that. Good evening, Joanne. Thanks for jumping in chat. Mini cash this week had Grillo. Very good. I had Grillo a couple times in the 17, 16 lineups that I played, but not nearly enough to make up for the Sam Stevens falling apart. I had a whole lot of Davis Riley. He misses the cut. That really, really hurt. And a little bit of Denny McCarthy. I thought maybe the putting might carry him. And then the lineups that I did have that were in contention up until this morning, Victor Hovland goes out and shoots +3 or 4. I was very high on Ben Martin. He goes out and shoots +9 today. Andrew Putnam, one of the decent suggestions I had for you all. He ends up blowing up today. So any suggestions that I had, the best ones were who to avoid in the sense of Eric Cole and Tommy Fleetwood, and maybe another or two. But glad to hear that you cashed your lineup and had Grillo, so congratulations on your success. Much appreciated, and thanks for jumping in chat. Hopefully you have enjoyed the weekend and are ready to start Memorial Week. The Memorial Tournament, presented by Nationwide, has been held at Muirfield Village for as long as I can remember. This is Jack's place. It's a Jack Nicklaus designed course. He renovated it recently, very recently, 2020. So we're going to have some Jack Nicklaus architect filters that we're going to be able to look at. But in terms of specifics around Muirfield Village, we're in Dublin, Ohio, just outside Columbus. Muirfield is a par 72, and it has not played this long for a long time. But the listed yardage is at 7,571 yards. This is a very, very long course, and we'll hit a couple of notes here that will tell you how the yardage has been increased. But a very long course this week. It's always been somewhat on the long end, but now definitely stretching close to 7,600, or at least by the scorecard, close to 7,600 yards. The greens are small. They are, in fact, the same size approximately as where we just left in Fort Worth at the Charles Schwab. 5,000 square feet on average here at Muirfield Village. Not a lot of fairway, only 24 acres, a whole lot of rough, and 13 holes with water in play. So you've got a tremendous amount of rough. You've got small greens, a long course, and a lot of water in play. All of that immediately should direct your attention to difficult, and that is what Muirfield Village and the Memorial has played a lot in the past, I would say 4 to 5 years. So we're going to be taking a long look at difficult scoring to par filters. As for some specifics around the course, we are on bent grass greens, and these are some of the fastest greens you will see on the PGA Tour. They rival Augusta National in terms of speed. They rival Bay Hill. Although Bay Hill is Bermuda, these are bent grass, as you see. But these are some of the fastest greens on the PGA Tour. And we are on bent throughout the course, with the exception of the rough, which is a combination of Kentucky bluegrass, rye, and fescue. But I want to direct your attention here at how thick this rough is. 4 inches long. This rough has always been long. It has always been very, very difficult. And you will see the correlation, or how that jumps into the players' minds when we move to Fantasy National. Good evening, Bruce. Thanks for jumping in chat. Today was a good day. Glad to hear it. Congratulations. That means you cashed some DFS. Maybe you had an outright on Grillo. But congratulations on your success. While it was a losing week for me, again, that makes about 4 straight, maybe 5 straight weeks on the losing end. I did have, or I feel a lot more positive this week, considering that I had some very good suggestions, especially on who to avoid. If Ben Martin doesn't go +9, I probably have a decent, better turnaround. Still not quite where I want to be. Obviously, I had a whole lot of Davis Riley. He misses the cut. I mentioned Cam Davis, had the outright on him. He misses the cut. So still have a lot of improvement, but I do have some signs of encouragement, I suppose. Both. Awesome. Well, congratulations on your Grillo outright wager then, sir. I imagine you were having a pretty darn good sweat during the playoff, and especially on hole 72, where Grillo did everything he could to give it away. But congratulations on a very, very big week for you, sir. Very, very big week. So you are by far the big winner of the community so far. So congratulations to you and to Joanne, who had some success in her DFS as well. Let's talk about this note. Yeah, big sweat. Let's talk about the added yardage here. So there's a note here, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit for you all without me getting too much in the way. Again, here's the length of the rough, 4 inches, very, very, very thick. 2 new tees have been added to hole 16, par 3, which can now measure up to 220 yards, and hole 17, which can now measure to 503 yards. So that is where some of this extra yardage is coming into. I can't say that's all of it, but that is where some of the additional yardage is coming in. So a lot longer of a course than you might be familiar with at Muirfield. So in a little bit of a review or a quick snapshot here, we're going to be looking at some Jack Nicklaus. We're going to be looking at some Jack Nicklaus filters in Fantasy National. We're going to be looking at bent grass greens, a whole lot of difficult filters, as there is very little fairway, small greens, lots of water on the course, and a long course. So another filter. So we have a pretty clear idea how we want to attack Muirfield from an analytics standpoint this week. There we go. I believe that's the regular size. All right. So with that, let's move on over to Fantasy National and the players in the field this week, as this is a designated event on the PGA Tour. So some of your biggest names are here again this week. John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Xander, Patrick Cantlay, Mr. Memorial himself seemingly, Jason Day, Ricky Fowler coming off a very positive Charles Schwab Challenge, Jordan Spieth and his missed cut, Victor Hovland. So big names here again this week for the Memorial. Let's go ahead and jump straight into the course breakdown, and then we'll start looking at some performance based on some of these filters. But let's take a look at this course breakdown. First thing I always like to do is look for the 9th and 10th most difficult holes. Try to find where par is on a golf course, where you see 9th and 10th most difficult are still playing over par. In fact, the 14th most difficult hole, or said another way, one of the easiest holes on the course is still playing just over par. So you have to go between 14 and 15 in terms of the most difficult holes to find par. That signifies just how difficult this course is. There are scoring chances, absolutely. You've got the par 5 fifth that plays to a third of a shot under par, quarter of a shot under par, a quarter of a shot under par, but very quickly you get to par and above. A couple of decent eagle rates, I suppose. Now the par 5 15th is a good eagle rate, just under 3%. Then you have 2% for the par 5 fifth, 1.5, not really a great eagle chance, and then 1.2. Again, decent birdies, but you can see where some of the high scores come in. You've got 5% double bogey rate on 18, 4.5, 5.5, bogey rates of 25%, 25%, 24%. So lots of bogeys around Jack's Place if you are not careful. And we see the length of the golf course mainly comes in these par 4s. We just saw the course, or the GCSA tournament fact sheet, how 17 has added a tee that can make it to 503. That's honestly the only par 4 that measures over 500 yards on the scorecard, if it will. But the majority, and I think it's all but 1 or 2 of your par 4s are in the high 480s to 490s. The opening hole, 490, 459, 455, 472, 485, 480, long par fours. And the par fives aren't short either. 588, 561, 582. So just long, difficult holes at Jack's Place. Let's move to strokes gained by shot type for your top 10s. You are a severe advantage for your approach players, but you can't call this a ball striking course just due to the fact that around the green is so important here. Again, this rough is very, very long. It is difficult to play out of. So if players are finding the rough, more than likely they're not going to be hitting the greens, these very small greens here at Muirfield. Off the tee, pretty diminished, especially for your top 10s. We move to the top 5s. You've got more of the same, although the ball striking starts to distance itself from short game just because of the importance of strokes gained approach. And then for your winners, it is a whole lot of approach. Off the tee does catch up in that regard to around the green, but that's really only for your winners. Around the green is a very, very consistent, important metric for your winners, your top 5s, your top 10s. Even if we were to go to the top 20s, around the green, very important. Average strokes gained by hole by par, again, for your top 10 finishers. No surprise here. Strokes gained par 5 are going to be your most important, especially since there are 4 of them on the course. They are generally your best opportunities at scoring. For your top 5s, again, you see the par 5s really take off. And then for your winners, they're actually playing the par 4s almost as well as your par 5s. It's not to say the par 3s aren't important. They are. But with a course seemingly for the first time in a while that has a full allotment of 4 par 5s, we're going to have a little bit of emphasis in par 5s this week. For the winners, par 4s come into play quite a bit as well. All right, as I was mentioning, hole composition. Your par 3s, you've got 1 that measures from 175 to 200, and then 3 that measure 200 to 225, so long par 3s as well here at Muirfield. Your par 4s, no drivable par 4s, but you do have 2 short par 4s, 350 to 4. You have 1 from 400 to 450, but the majority, 7 of your 10 on the scorecard, measure 450 to 500. So it'll be very interesting to see if this is indeed a range that we just maybe want to focus on. Maybe neglect the other 2 par 4s ranges and focus on this, since 70% of your par 4s measure to here. And don't forget, with that note from the GCSIA tournament fact sheet, they are now able to set up 1 of the par 4s at over 500. And then the par 5s, you have a short par 5, 543 maybe, 547, and then 3 that measure from 550 to 600. So there's a look at your hole composition. We'll see if these individual ranges here are where we want to focus. We'll take a look at that a little bit tonight, but really dive into that tomorrow for the data dive. Approach shot distribution. The majority of your approach shots here at Muirfield come from 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. Again, no surprise with these long par 4s. Makes a whole lot of sense. You don't have a lot of short par 4s. You also have some long par 3s, so perhaps 200 plus might be something we look at. But we're definitely going to be looking at the longer end of the proximities and see if that is where we want to put our attention. Historic cut line, you see it got somewhat easy in the mid 2000 teens. In 2016 it was all the way to -1, even par in 15. You had a couple of years where it was only +1. Jack didn't like that very much, so he really toughened up the course. The past few years you've been anywhere from +3 to +4, so making it a very difficult test of golf. Scoring distribution, just under 20% birdies, which are in fact outweighing the bogeys by a decent amount. But this doubles bar is pretty sizable, and the Eagles bar is well, it's kind of non-existent. So you stack up bogeys and doubles on top of the birdies and eagles, you'll actually have more scores that are over par here. So again, a difficult test. Driving accuracy, speaking to the length of the rough and how it's generally kept very long and is very difficult to play out of. Players know this coming into the Memorial, so a lot of times players will club down. They might hit 3 woods to make sure they find the fairway. As you see, distance is less just by a bit, but it is less than the average tour event because they know there's a premium on fairways. To be in the fairway here. Greens, again, small greens, long rough, difficult. Green regulation percentage, no surprise, quite a bit less than the average tour event. And players are not as successful scrambling here as they are at the average tour event. So all of these factors adding to, or at least these 2 factors, green and regulation and scrambling, making it, again, adding emphasis, I should say, to how difficult Muirfield is. For as small of greens as these are, you do have a fair amount of 3 putts, and that's just due to the lightning speed that these greens are generally kept at. So 3 putts, we'll see if that's something we want to look at. Not sure early on the Sunday, but something to keep in mind. And then proximity, because these greens are small, if you are finding the green in regulation, your proximity is actually going to be pretty darn close, at least compared to the average tour event. So there's a look at Muirfield from a scorecard and graphical view here in Fantasy National. Let's take a look at quite a few things here, actually. We saw just how important strokes gained approach is in the strokes gained by shot type. So I'm not going to do anything with strokes gained approach when it's difficult or on long courses. Let's just get a feel for who've been the top approach players this calendar year. Those players have been Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele, Wyndham Clark, Ricky Fowler, Victor Hovland, Tom Hoge, Sepp Straka, and Tyrrell Hatton. Again, the Charles Schwab not in here, so this might move a little bit in terms of ordering, but there have been your top strokes gained approach players. And again, Joanne and Bruce, I don't know when you joined or if you saw the note that Maverick McNeely has withdrawn. He's the one field change that I have seen so far. So Mav McNeely is out. Mark Hubbard has taken his spot in the field. But there's your look at your top strokes gained approach players. We've seen that around the green is going to be very, very important. And I'm actually going to take a look at this in a couple of different ways. Probably difficult, long, rough, but just in general, your top strokes gained around the green players this calendar year: Chris Kirk, Matt Kuchar, Brendan Todd, Ben Griffin, Justin Thomas, Jason Day, Hideki, Scotty Scheffler, Ben On, and Danny Willett. All right, let's extend this timeline a little bit. We're going to go to 2021 for a lot of what I want to look at here. So let's start with difficult. We know that we just know that Muirfield is going to be difficult, but to back that up, I'll take you to the historic conditions very, very quickly. You see all of 2022, 2021, 2020, difficult. You had 2019, you had a round of difficult, and 2018, you had a round of difficult. They've lengthened the course. The rough has always been long. The greens have always been lightning or fast and or lightning, no other speed. And you see most of the time it's been lightning. So just a very, very difficult course. So with the difficult filter on, your top players in rounds that have been difficult since the beginning of 2021 in the field this week: Scotty Scheffler, Rory, Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, Jon Rahm, Matt Fitzpatrick, Victor Hovland, Xander, Shane Lowry, and Patrick Cantlay. Again, I think it's going to be okay to look at strokes gained around the green, or at least take a look at this list, strokes gained around the green when it's difficult. I'm not sure it's going to be in the mixed condition model, but around the green is going to be important. We know that Muirfield's difficult. So Your top strokes gained around the green players when a round's been difficult. Matt Kuchar, Chris Kirk, Jordan Spieth, Ben On, Matt Wallace, Danny Willett, Denny McCarthy, Scotty Scheffler, Jason Day, Stefan Jaeger, and Francesco Molinari. So a lot of overlap here with just strokes gained around the green in general, but Jordan Spieth rises into the top 3 when you add the difficult filter. I believe Matt Wallace rises into the top 5 with the difficult filter of around the green. Molinari was not in the 2023 around the green, so he rises. Jaeger as well. A lot of overlap, but you do have a few names there. And while we're looking at strokes gained around the green, let's go ahead and look at strokes gained around the green when the rough is long. And again, from the historic conditions, this rough has always been long. 4 inches has been the most I have seen. I know a few years there was 3.5 or 3 3/4. But in general, this rough is long. It's difficult to play out of. It's supposed to be a penalty. That's the way Jack Nicklaus wants it. So, your top strokes gained around the green players when the rough is long since the start of 2021. Danny Willett, Chris Kirk, Jordan Spieth, Ben Griffin, Kevin Kisner, Matt Fitzpatrick, Matt Kuchar, Jason Day, Scotty Scheffler, Kevin Streelman, and Cameron Young. So again, a lot more overlap here. Jason Day and Scheffler and Kirk, Willett. Spieth's now up there twice. Kuchar's been in all 3. But again, a couple of new names here. Ben Griffin has been adept at around the green in long rough. Kevin Kisner, good around the green in long rough. Kevin Streelman. So there's a couple more names to consider early on this week. Let's see here. Let's go with putting. We'll start looking at some putting here. Of course, we're on bent, and I'm going to use the fast and lightning filter. I don't fault you one bit if you want to look just at lightning, but even as recent as last year, you did have a round where it was fast. You had 3 rounds in 2021 that were fast. So it's not a guarantee that it's lightning speed. But if I were a betting man, and I don't know why you would ever assume I'm a betting man, but if I were a betting man, I would bet that the greens are going to be lightning. So your top bent grass putters when the greens are fast and lightning since 2021 have been Christian Bezadenhout, Patrick Cantley, Alex Noren, Brendan Todd, Justin Lauer, John Rahm, Bo Hostler, Rory, Sam Burns, and Denny McCarthy. All right, let's see. Take away that, and we can look at some total performance as we round out this portion of the show. Let's take a look on Jack Nicklaus courses. Not too many courses, so keep this in mind. Only 24 rounds. You have Glen Abbey, which was the former host of the Canadian Open, I believe. Muirfield, obviously. You have the Nicklaus Tournament course, which is part of the rotation for the American Express. Clicked on the wrong thing. Concession. And Valhalla, where next year's PGA Championship is. I believe the 2017, maybe it was 2015 PGA Championship was. And not so, or coincidentally actually, is kind of in my backyard, at least in terms of rough geographical sense. So I know Valhalla a little bit. But those are your Jack Nicklaus courses, or at least giving you the information that those are the courses that are comprising this data set. So, since the beginning of 2021, and again, not a very, very long time to go back, but just to give you an idea, your top performers on Jack Nicklaus designed courses: Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantley, Scotty Scheffler, Shane Lowry, Chris Kirk, Siwoo Kim, Eric Cole, Billy Horschel, Rory, and Sahith Theegala. So not a whole lot of surprise here. Morikawa was your winner at Concession. Cantley, a two-time winner here at Muirfield. Horschel is your defending champion here. Siwoo has won the American Express. So a whole lot of correlation there. And if you are wanting to look at Jack Nicklaus filter, you would want to probably extend the timeline. But again, I'm just trying to give you some names here for players that have generally played Jack Nicklaus designs well. All right, let's go ahead and move to long courses. On the scorecard, Muirfield measures close to 7,600 yards. So your top performers on long courses since the beginning of 2021, Jon Rahm, Xander, Corey Connors, first time we've said him tonight, Scotty Scheffler, Sam Stevens, Rory, Colin Morikawa, Sungjae, Jordan Spieth, and Keegan Bradley. A couple of more we can look at here. Actually, let's just do one more. Your top performers. We looked at around the green when it was difficult, but we didn't look at strokes gained total. So, your top performers when a round has been difficult since the beginning of 2021. Scotty Scheffler, Rory, Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, Jon Rahm, Matt Fitzpatrick, Victor Hovland, Xander, Shane Lowry, and Patrick Cantley. So again, the who's who of the PGA Tour. The Memorial is a premier event, always has been. Now it's a designated event. Generally brings out the best players, and the best players generally rise on the leaderboards here. So there's a look at some metrics, some filters that you probably want to start your week considering, and who the players are best at those metrics and filters. We covered a whole lot there, so I don't think we're going to cover anything in terms of specific stats. So let's go ahead and jump straight into the tournament history, shall we? The strokes gained total tab, tournament history tab, however you want to phrase it. Again, I mentioned Billy Horschel is your defending champion, but your overwhelming, and I mean overwhelming, strokes gained total leader the past 5 years here at Muirfield is Patrick Cantley. With a little bit of an asterisk, a tad bit of an asterisk there. He has won here twice, 2019 full-on win. Now the 2021 win does come with an asterisk due to Jon Rahm's forced withdrawal from testing positive. So keep that in mind. But Patrick Cantley, you see, has always played Memorial very, very well. His worst performance the past 5 years is a T32. Siwoo Kim has performed very, very well here as well. Nothing to the elite level like Patrick Cantley, but he still has a top 10, a couple other top 20s. So Siwoo's been very good here. Xander, in the past 4 years, has nothing outside of a top 20. Now, he did miss the cut 5 years ago, but the past 4 years, he's had nothing outside the top 20. Jon Rahm wins in 2020, was pretty darn well on his way to winning in 2021. I believe he was up by 5 or 6 after round 3 and then was forced to withdraw. So anything could have happened on Sunday. You can't say he was a guaranteed winner, but he was certainly looking primed to go back-to-back. And then last year, T10. So Rahm has played very well here. Jordan Spieth has played well. Rory, Billy Horschel, again, your defending champion. Adam Scott has played well here, although last year was a clunker of a made cut. Kevin Streelman, I've mentioned him a few times before, and I did not mention him last week as his form has been pretty poor. But anytime a course gets long and difficult, Kevin Streelman generally plays pretty darn well. And you saw that at Charles Schwab this week. He's good in the wind. Again, difficult, pretty darn good. Really take a consideration with Kevin Streelman, and he's played the Memorial pretty well. Ricky, Colin Morikawa, Jason Day, and so on and so forth. You can see some of those other names there. At the other end of the spectrum, players in the field this week that haven't played Memorial very well. Stuart Sink, 2 for 4. Cam Davis, even though this is bent greens, he has struggled at Memorial. He's 1 for 3. Again, Maverick McNeely has withdrawn. He was only 0 for 1. William McGirt, now granted, he is a former winner at the Memorial, but this has been years ago, 2013, I believe, maybe 2012. So only 1 for 4 in his past 4 attempts. Adam Long, 1 for 4. Russell Knox is 3 for 4 at making the cut, but still one of your worst in terms of strokes gained total. Wyndham Clark, Andrew Putnam. Interesting to see Joel Damon, 4 for 4 in making the cut, but nothing in terms of all-inspiring finishes. He's gotten a little bit better the past couple of years, but nothing in terms of all-inspiring performances. Neesmith, Tom Hoagie has a top 15 and then 3 straight missed cuts. Mark Hubbard, who's in the field replacing Matt McNeely. So there's a list of a few of the players who haven't played Memorial and Muirfield Village very well the past 5 years. All right, good segue to move on over to Microsoft Excel. We'll start with the comparison course. And yes, while this isn't a full field, this is an invitational, it's still a big enough field that I like to use compared to other generally full field events or your invitationals like the Genesis and the Charles Schwab. Muirfield, you can see the extreme lack of importance for off the tee. Players just know that that fairways are a must, so a lot of players are clubbing down. We'll skip a little bit. You see, I mean, even though it says fairways are minus 8%, it's just generally because everybody's hitting 3 woods and irons trying to hit the fairway. So, not sure we're going to be looking at fairways per se, but definitely not going to be looking at off the tee. As you can see, its lack of importance. On the other hand, you see approach, 20% more important. Around the green, 64% more important than the average full field course. Just a heavy emphasis around the green for Muirfield. And then putting, 5%. We're definitely going to have some putting metrics in the mixed condition model. Not sure the percentage, but we'll definitely have some. But definitely going to be looking at approach and around the green as the 2 main strokes gained shot types this week. Moving into driving statistics. Driving distance, I don't like the thought of using driving distance, even though it's showing that it is slightly higher than the full field course average. We saw in Fantasy National the driving distance is lower here. Players are clubbing down. Fairways are such a premium. I would have thought good drives gained would have been something to look at, but it is showing that it has not been as much of an important factor. Greens only slightly as much. So I'll be quite intent on looking at this tab tomorrow in the Data Dive show and seeing if we can't uncover some hidden gems or what the story is trying to tell us about Memorial in terms of driving. And maybe there's really not anything. Maybe we just need to stick to strokes gained approach and then focus on scoring and some individual hole or individual lengths. But nothing stands out as of right now in terms of the driving tab. We move to scoring, and as you would expect on a difficult course, if par is a good score, you would think you would want to look at bogeys avoided. So that is seemingly something that is where we want to start our week. I have a feeling that double bogey avoidance might creep into the thought process. Generally speaking, the past 3 or 4 weeks for these tough courses, the Charles Schwab, the PGA, double bogey avoidance has been something like 1.4, 1.5. We'll see if that is a higher number in these prior leaderboards at the Memorial at Muirfield. and maybe double bogey avoidance is something we want to look at. This was a little bit misleading in terms of the course breakdown at Fantasy National, but you see the par 3s actually are carrying some significant weight here in all 3 lengths. Now, there are no holes that measure to this length on the scorecard. You have 1 here and 3 here. So my guess would be the majority of your strokes gained in the par 3s are falling into this range. But in all of the par 3s seemingly matter for your players that are finishing in the top 30 at Muirfield the past 5 years. So again, it was a little bit misleading in terms of Fantasy National, but it looks like we don't want to ignore the par 3s. Now the par 4s, again, they were a little bit mitigated in importance until you got to the winners. But I want you to take a look, again, with 7 of your 10 par 4s measuring to this length, it looks like we just want to look at this length of par 4s. Even though there are 2 that measure to here and 1 here on the scorecard, you see they are less than full field course average versus a 43% more important factor for your 450 to 500 yard par 4s at Muirfield. So my guess is we're just going to be looking at this length moving forward starting tomorrow night in the Day to Dive show. And then par 5s, we saw this graphically. They are carrying significant weight. There are 4 of them. They are generally the 4 easiest holes. You do have to score on them. There are no holes that measure to here, so I would basically take that out essentially or ignore it, because no holes measure to here, and not every course has a 0 to 500. But certainly the 550 to 6, where 3 of your par 5s fall, they are carrying significant weight. And the one that measures at 543 or 547 looks like it's carrying significant weight. And lastly, we'll take a look at some proximity. Again, small green, so you would expect total procs not to matter. Although, again, last week we saw Charles Schwab and Colonial that total procs was something, and that's why I included it in the mixed condition model. The most common approach shot lengths here at Memorial are 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. Those are negative. Your 200 plus is positive. Your 100 to 125 is positive. So just like every week, we're going to have to see if there's a specific length of proximity. If so, which. There might not be one. This is why I don't like proximity as a statistical analyst, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. But the numbers are what they are. So there's a look at Muirfield, at least compared to other full field courses on the PGA Tour, at least consistent full field courses. You see the Canadians at a new course, the US Open rotates, etc., etc. And then on Monday or tomorrow night, we'll really dig into the detail here, and we'll go through that. You can see I'm ready to insert the 2023 for Charles Schwab, but we'll take a look at Memorial tomorrow in detail form. But instead, for the remainder of the evening, let's go to what I call the early look file, or the strokes gained total tab, the tournament history page view from Fantasy National, the past 5 years, brought to Microsoft Excel and split out according to whatever statistic we are wanting to look at. So for any new viewers or for returning viewers who need a refresher, the number of times the player has played at that course in the past 5 years, and I only go back 5 years because golfers change, courses change, all of that. You can argue whether that's a right decision, wrong decision. Again, just being transparent in the fact that I only go back 5 years because I don't want to bring in too much or too historical of data. But in the past 5 years, how many times the player has played, what their average finish has been in those 5 years, how many times they've missed the cut. And then, for example, John Rahm has averaged a 1.4 off the tee in those 2 years. 2 years because he withdrew in 2021. We don't get those statistics since he withdrew. But your overwhelming strokes gained total leader, Patrick Cantlay, averaging 5.6 in approach each of those years, 2.6 off the tee, 2 and around the green, 2.7 putting, etc., etc. So again, just as a refresher or for any new viewers and your knowledge. I'm going to remove... I'm only going to remove the players that have played it once. Normally I like to look at players that have played it 3, 4, and 5 times. But the reason I'm not going to do that, because 2020 was the awful year that it was, it does create a little bit of a unique circumstance in the sense that, you know, players hadn't been playing all spring and whatnot. So that is a little bit of an outlier, even though it was still played at Muirfield and all that stuff. So I'm only going to do with 2 of, or remove the players that have only played it once, just because 2020 could be a slight bit of an outlier. And then, of course, 2021 with Jon Rahm's withdrawal, they were still dealing with or implementing some procedures. So, of your players that have played multiple times at Memorial the past 5 years, let's look at the players that have averaged a top 40. This is a good 17 players here. So you see off the tee 0.8. Bezuidenhout has played well here in his 2 times. He is not good off the tee. Lucas Herbert's not been good off the tee. Wallace, Brendan Todd. Off the tee is not mandatory here. Approach. This is a 2.3, so tripling the importance on off the tee. Around the green, a 1.2, so 50% more important than off the tee. And then putting is a 1.4. I still think around the green is going to carry a little bit more significance than what it was showing. Corey Connors, generally not the best around the green player anyway. Generally does it with the irons. He had a 0.7 or negative 0.7 here from Adam Scott, but Jon Rahm, who's played it very well, very good around the green. Patrick Cantlay, Scheffler, Siwoo has been doing it a lot with the short game here at Muirfield, and you see the amount of success he's had. So I do like some around the green metrics this week. Moving across into the driving tab, distance a little bit for these upper echelon finishes, but again, not mandatory. Brendan Todd, never going to be long. Bezuidenhout, never going to be long. Siwoo's not long, at least for here at Muirfield. So not mandatory. Rory always going to have it. Jon Rahm generally always going to have it. Cantlay can move it, so it can be a small advantage, but not necessary. I am very, very surprised to see fairways just not be a big deal. It's only a 0.6. Like Lucas Herbert hasn't seemingly hit a fairway in either year. Of course, Brendan Todd, that is his game, but Brendan Todd seems like he's hit every fairway. But you see Rahm, Cantlay's only a 0.2. Tagala, negative 2.1. He's played well here. Jordan Spieth hasn't found many fairways, but has played well here. So seeing the numbers, I'm shocked, but they are what they are. Fairways isn't the biggest deal. Probably getting deflated because everybody's just trying to hit the fairway. That would be my guess as to what's happening there. Greens, you got some spike performances, but you also have Herbert not very good. Jordan Spieth's not been very good at hitting greens in regulation here. Tagala's a little bit under field average. Todd under field average. So I think it's going to be something. I mean, this is a 2.4, so it's a decent number, but it's not the highest by any means. Bogeys and birdies. Just off of a quick look, your 2 best players, I can't say much more because Cantlay's pretty even, but favoring the bogey avoidance. Now, Scheffler's been more in gaining the birdies. Siwoo's been gaining the birdies. Bezuidenhout, bogey avoidance. Adam Scott's bogey avoidance. Spieth, bogey avoidance. So it looks like a slight advantage to the bogey avoidance, but it's not big. This is a 2.0 bogey avoidance 2.4. So So it's still a little bit fairly close, but still a lean on the bogey avoidance as what I would have thought. If pars are good scores, you want to look at bogey avoidance. So we'll see if in the prior leaderboards, if bogey avoidance is something we want to indeed include in our mixed condition model. Moving into the 3s, 4s, and 5s, this will really help generate where some of these strokes are being gained by our elite players at Muirfield. Let's see. Par 3s, this is a 1.0. Par 4s are a 2.5. Par 5s are a 2.2. So par 3s are getting left by the 4s and the 5s for your elite finishers. You see Brendan Todd's not played them very well. Spieth, Horschel has not played the par 3s spectacular, but yet is the defending champion. Of the specific length, again, there's only one par 3 that measures to here. This is a 0.4. This is a 0.2. Interesting. I would have thought the 200 to 225 would have been the higher number. So perhaps we're just looking at par 3s. Perhaps. Par 4s. You do have a couple of players that are negative, but look at these numbers. -2 or 0.2, -0.2. Par 4s are still something that you're going to want to look at this week. Again, that's a 2.5, 450 to 5. You have some higher shade of green in the 400 to 450, but look, that's a 2.9, whereas the a lighter shade of green is a 3.5. Look at the 450 to 5 as well. Look at that. Okay, there you go. There's the story. Every single player the past 5 years who has averaged a top 40 finish at Muirfield has been positive on those 450 to 500 yard par 4s. Not a single one of these 17 players is negative at that length of par 4s. Clearly a focal point that we're going to want to focus on this week. And then moving into par 5s, you only have one player that is negative in par 5s in the top 40. That's Corey Connors. But you see the overwhelming performance and the strong, elite performance. Scheffler, Cantlay, even Seawood, a 3.1. Overwhelming par 5 performance the past 5 years here at Muirfield for these players. It's surprising, but it looks like the more consistent success has been in the 500 to 550, which only has one of the 4 par 5s. This is a 1.0. This is a 0.9, so they're pretty close. You're getting a couple of spike performances here. But you had a couple of players that are negative as well. Corey Connors, Scott Bezadenhout. Whereas Bezadenhout and Scott are really taking advantage of the 500 to 550. One par 5. So, last thing we'll take a look at. Let's take a look at proximity. See where these elite players are gaining their proximity, if they're gaining it at all. Total prox doesn't look all that strong. You got a couple of horrendous performances. Spieth and Herbert are nowhere near the green, seemingly. Siwoo, not horrendous, but bad. 150 to 175. These two were the most prevalent approach length. This is a very small number, like 5. This is a 17. That's a decent sized number for 175 to 200. But you still have players that are negative in it. Sahith, Bezadenhout, Spieth, Todd. So it's not mandatory to be great from this range. But there's a look at the prior performance of your elite finishers here at Muirfield. I will bring back everybody that is in the field this week. And, of course, tomorrow we'll go through the specific metrics and see who has been the best historically approach around the green, putting, bogey avoidance, specifically at Muirfield, but we'll do that tomorrow. Want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching and listening, supporting the channel. I always appreciate it. Congratulations again to Joanne for your success in DFS, and a massive congratulations to Bruce on your outright hit on Emiliano Grillo and your DFS success this week at the Charles Schwab. Congratulations. Always love being able to shout out members of the community who have success. However much information you gather from watching, whether it's a little or a lot, I always enjoy hearing people having big amounts of success. So congratulations to you two. And of course, if anyone else out there had success, reach out to me, put it in the comments, reach out to me on social media. We'd love to be able to shout you out later on this week as well. But thanks to Joanne and Bruce for jumping in chat. Always appreciated. And thanks to everyone else out there who has supported the channel. Quick reminder that tomorrow is going to be the usual data dive show, but it's going to be a pretty special one. It's the 2-year anniversary since I have started the channel. I started making content 2021 with the Memorial Tournament. Technically, I started with the data dive. So I'm looking forward to a 2-year anniversary of the channel tomorrow. I'm not going to do anything huge or spectacular for it, but would appreciate anyone who would like to join in on a very, very fun 2 years. I've really enjoyed it, and it wouldn't be possible without you all continuing to come back, watch, listen, and engage. So I always appreciate it. For all of the wagers you made this past week at the Charles Schwab, for all the DFS contests you entered this past weekend for the Charles Schwab, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive Show, may all your bets be profitable.